Alright everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. Unpause and repause. Otherwise, I have to watch my ugly mug in several different windows. That's really not something that I want to do. You know, I do own a mirror. I realize that I'm not exactly Adonis. So we've got actually quite a bit of news today. Again, it's going to be one of those days where I have stories that get carried over probably into the next news cycle, simply because there was so much. Sometimes you get to say, this is a continuous bitch that I've got as a content creator, right? Some of you don't really make videos or do news analysis and stuff like that. Some days you've got like 20,000 fucking articles that are really primo stuff. Other days you get like 2 of them. Sometimes you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel a little bit and really do a deep dive in order to get anything to talk about at all, unless it's non-politics. That's why I cover some occult material from time to time. I've actually got one docketed right now, but I can't remember exactly what it was on. I remember covering the end of the penny. Oh yes, I was going to talk about the dominant frequency, or the sinister current, actually, along with the concept of sin, but I think I mislabeled them. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to look back through my occult playlist in order to figure it out. We have the indictment of Sheila Sherphyllis McCormick, Democrat from Florida. Yes, apparently she was dipping into FEMA funds, and she has been indicted now by a Florida grand jury for doing so to the tune of $5 million. I noticed that other than Axios, there's not a whole lot of legacy media actually even really talking about this subject. I would think that that level of embezzlement, I mean, this isn't like, hey, you know, you accidentally took $2,000 from the FEMA fund, you have to pay it back. This is a felony indictment, so this is a little bit more compelling than most of them. I keep hearing how Republican candidate took $5,000 out of the campaign funds for some personal expenses is a big problem. Meanwhile, you've got a person here embezzling $5 million, and apparently it's not really newsworthy to most of these news sites. Nigeria's Christian killings test Trump's promise of action. Yes, indeed. Nigeria has a genocide currently going on. Islamic gangs are attacking Christians. They're burning churches. They're doing basically like what Varg Vikernes would have done 20 years ago. And for some reason, nobody really wants to talk about it. I wonder if the color of the skin has something to do with that. Probably does. Just saying. And keep in mind, Nigeria is one of the more stable African nations. They actually have an economic footprint and a development index. Most of them don't. Court blocks new Texas congressional map and severe blow to GOP. I wonder what this means for the redistricting in California. Why do I get the feeling that Texas is going to be blocked from redistricting, but California won't? I have a feeling that there's some shenanigans afoot here, and that has to do with the midterm elections mainly. AI is about to face an enormous test. The market is already nervous. I myself am not. Chip producers, especially Nvidia, are powering AI for the most part. And it is very, very useful. I've generated all sorts of images. It can make movies now. It can do all sorts of amazing things. AI is an incredibly powerful tool. One that could literally upend human culture and lead to the collapse of our civilization, but properly used for creative purposes, that probably won't happen. But people are getting nervous about the AI bubble. I'm here to tell people, don't worry about it too much. If I had money to invest right now, AI would be something that I would probably be leaning into, honestly. Same with crypto at the moment. Anytime a market collapses but is expected to recover, it's a good investment opportunity. Rich people understand this. And then Trump is going after the education department. Yes, indeed. He has finally decided to make good on his promise to go after one of the worst bureaucracies in the United States. Like, I would say the tier is the IRS is the worst. The FBI is a close second simply because it can't get its shit together. The Department of Education is probably a close third because it really, I mean, I'm seeing people make statements like, oh, Trump is trying to get rid of the Department of Education because he wants people to be stupid. Meanwhile, if you actually look at charts of educational attainment over time, The Department of Education's inception coincides with a drop in educational attainment. And that's after, by the way, they also lower the standards. So the standards that used to be there for attainment are now considerably lower than they were back in the 1970s. Despite that fact, the attainment rate still continues to drop. The Department of Education is an abysmal failure. I think Trump's honestly not even going far enough. I would just abolish it in the literal sense. There would be no Department of Education. It wasn't constitutionally incepted anyway, so, you should just get rid of it. It's not doing anything. Turner, you forgot the ATF. Okay, good point. We'll put the ATF in the top 5, definitely. Turtle's Toy Box Sticks, leave the racism to professionals like myself. We've got a cult priestess in the house, by the way. Should definitely watch her new song. More music a-coming, I believe. Takes a while, though. Apparently it takes weeks to even use AI to create those videos. But it came out really good in the end. Drag Queen Storytime. Stix Fuentes. I like Nick Fuentes. I don't understand why so many people have a problem with him. Really don't understand. Is my audio and video working properly? A couple of people on Rumble are saying it might be a Rumble problem, but a couple of people are saying that it's janky. It's always possible. It happens on a regular basis. I try my best. But unfortunately, I don't control the servers at YouTube or Rumble, so sometimes it's not on my end. Fine on YouTube. Okay, so Rumble may have a little bit of a problem for some people. Okay, never mind. So we'll get right into the news. Then we'll get to our sponsors. Then we'll get into bands. And then hang out. By the way, I wanted to make a bit of an announcement. I'm probably going to do a Thanksgiving live stream, wherein I take, leftovers from the main dinner. I'm going to do that with my family. So, yeah, that's my own thing. I'll come here with some leftovers, especially the stuffing that was stuffed inside of the turkey's asshole, because that's the tastiest thing on the menu, and then eat and do some more bands. What day is Thanksgiving this year? It is the next Thursday. So I would do my normal live stream. Yeah, probably after that I'll eat my Thanksgiving dinner. I'll probably pass out in a food coma for a little while, and then I'll do a Thanksgiving meal dinner with everyone else. I figure, you've got, some people don't really have a family around or friends that they eat Thanksgiving with, so, it doesn't matter if you get a can of cranberry sauce instead of making it yourself. Although this year, I'm definitely going to make my own cranberry sauce, because I like it extra tart. Just saying, any holiday that food is related to, those are my favorite holidays. So, Thanksgiving, Easter, the 4th of July is certainly with barbecue and shit like that. Get some good hot dogs and burgers going, maybe some steak. And then, of course, Christmas. Christmas is a feast day. It's literally a feastival, not just a festival. Girl of the Valley, Stix is early. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I got impatient to make a live stream. So we'll get to the first news story here right now. Then to the sponsors. We'll continue from there. Democratic Representative Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, I'm assuming that I'm pronouncing that correct, indicted by a Florida grand jury for allegedly stealing $5 million in FEMA overpayments to her company and funneling the money into her congressional campaign. This is a problem for the Democrats because you already don't have the House. Now it looks like a member of the House is probably going to have to resign and get kicked aside. You're going to have to do something about this, dude, because despite the redistricting, conundrum and other things like that, and the fact that the dominant party tends to lose the House during the midterms, you really do not have a whole lot of leverage here. especially when the House Democrats are perceived of by the average American as weak, fickle, and incapable of doing their jobs. So any loss within the House context, I mean, the Senate, you've got a little bit more leverage, but any loss in the context of the House could be damning. You could end up not retaking the House simply because of this particular case. The Florida Democrat had been under investigation by House ethics watchdogs since 2023 over alleged improper donations to her special election campaign the year prior. Keep in mind, it took 2 years for them to actually come to their findings. This is normal within the legal system. You would not believe, unless you've been through it, how monumentally goddamn slow it is. It isn't like an episode of Judge Judy most of the time. It doesn't even matter whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony or something like that. Hell, they'll get to the felons first. They'll actually get processed a little bit faster. The Sheriff's McCormick spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment, though the Congresswoman had previously denied wrongdoing in relation to the congressional ethics probes into her. They wouldn't be able to go through with the probe and actually indict you in the grand jury sense if there weren't considerable evidence that you had done something wrong. They tend to be reluctant to indict. Especially if you're a member of Congress, of course, there's more reluctance to indict a person at that point. So she's guilty. That much is fairly clear. You still have to discover the evidence. You still have to go through the motions, but it's pretty clear that there was wrongdoing in this particular case. Yeah, this year, Thanksgiving is definitely on tap for a live stream. Possibly Christmas as well. Talamasca. Finally, our children's children might see some actual arrests. This is awesome. Yeah, again, I mean, it takes years. I mean, this is not even... this is a civil case. This is a case of embezzlement, so this is not like a murder or something like that, and it still takes 2 fucking years to process the paperwork. Trust me, that happens all sorts of the time. Broken Prophet, my grok listens to sticks. Yeah, I wonder if you could, like, train AI by just popping through material from content creators. I'm sure that some leftoid has already developed the basic premise for warfare reasons. Sertorius. So, McCormick is the first penguin that the crowd of penguins push off the ice into the sea for the killer whale's tea. Yeah, when somebody is that much of dead weight, they're not gonna circle wagons. They're just gonna kick them out. Unless they're a really important person. I had never even heard of this member of Congress before, and probably nobody that wasn't one of her constituents in Florida did either. So it doesn't become as much of a major news story. So they're willing to throw her, to the wolves. Meisner Flux, Tucker Carlson, softballed Fuentes, and the World War II revisionist. No cross-examination while mercilessly grilling his colleague Cruz over minutia, paid by Qatar to spread UN and Hamas propaganda. I believe that you are partially correct. It is quite clear that there are shenanigans going on right now politically. We see that with legal cases. We see it with the Carlson nexus, the Fuentes nexus. But I do not believe that Fuentes is a Fed. Some people have claimed that he is. I've talked to him just enough to get a bead on him. I do not believe that he is a Fed. I believe that rather he has ideas that sometimes I find zany or objectionable. He has the right to express himself. I do not believe in silencing people. When you silence a man by cutting out his tongue, it's because you fear what he has to say. I'm not afraid of Fuentes at all. If I see him in a dark alleyway, I know he's probably not going to, jack me with a knife or something like that. I don't believe that he's a Fed. I believe that he's an idealist. I don't believe in everything that he believes in. He's a hardcore Catholic. It's a little bit different from me now, isn't it? But he has the right to speak. And I really, really hate it when people, they'll get into these weird football game style grudge matches, especially among conservatives. They're way worse at this than the liberals are, though the liberals are trying to match them at this point. They'll get into these weird grudge matches where they develop sort of almost a weird relationship with some figure. And so if anyone criticizes them in any way, they automatically assume that that other person is a terrible individual, without realizing sometimes ideology is just ideology. That's basically what's happening. I mean, it can be entertaining at times. It's, infotainment, I suppose, of a sort. But I believe that people should be able to speak freely. I do not believe in silencing anyone. If anything, I want people that I disagree with to speak more, because it gives me something to talk about, because I believe that I'm more intelligent than most of them. So, I'm capable of debating the point. And if I find it objective, I can always turn it off. That's the whole point. If you're offended, turn it off. That should be the ethos of the entire U.S. population, by the way. Mr. Self-Destruct. I've actually debated Fuentes twice. Once was on politics, and once was on religion, actually. And it was fun. I mean, he's a respectful debater. He's not talking over people and, getting irate and screaming that he's going to kill somebody or something like that. You don't have to agree with a person, but you do have to allow them to speak. Nick plays. Your body, my choice, and everything else he does turns people in the middle away from the GOP and into Democratic arms. Well, as a non-conservative, non-GOP member, I just don't care about the issue. It doesn't mean anything to me because I'm not a partisan, politically speaking. I realize that some of the things that Fuentes says are deliberately acerbic to get attention and so forth, to get, the ad revenue and shit. And so I realize that sometimes he will deliberately say things that are, sort of out there. But he has the right to say them. He's not telling anyone to go blow up the synagogue or anything like that. Supposedly, he's like the head Nazi of our time. Why hasn't he started saying, hey, we need death camps? No, the last person in the United States to do that was fucking socialist FDR. Yeah. Concentration camps for all the little Asian kids and stuff like that. So, yeah, if he wants to speak freely, that's perfectly fine. Tarred and Feathered. Tucker, Candace, and Nick are the thought leaders of tomorrow. I do not agree with that sentiment. There is a very, very wide plethora of different opinions among the independent community. And it's not limited to just the ones that are being talked about by the legacy media, because they do put those statements out there in order to get attention. And you have to do that. You have to brand yourself. You have to get attention. That's the only way you're going to make any money. Everyone has to be able to pay the goddamn rent. And so it becomes a little bit of a problem, a juxtaposition between keeping a core ideology intact and making sure to get enough attention that you're able to actually make a living and promote that ideology. Because if you're flipping burgers all day, it's going to be kind of hard to find the time to actually make your podcast. So I don't begrudge them at all. Actually, I congratulate them. Hey, you've made it. What's wrong with that, dude? Bender, Sticks, will you be on Break the Rules again anytime soon? I will go on Lev's podcast pretty much any time, actually. Yeah, I really like the Break the Rules podcast. Lev, by the way, has really, really streamlined his format, too. And it was already good to begin with, but he's made it even, much, much better. So, I have a lot of respect for Lev Polyakov. Yeah, I would, if he can get Fuentes on or something like that, maybe I'd debate him again. Although we might end up just having a discussion because it seems like we do align on a considerable number of issues from time to time. Maybe not on religion, probably more on politics. let's get to our sponsors before we get to the rest of the news, because it's fun, and it gives me an opportunity to eat more bovite and stuff like that. First and foremost, we have cultivated-mind.com, where you can get mushroom pills, or doggy dose. You can give that to your doggos and possibly your cats, but it's not entirely sure. I take them every single day. In fact, I'm going to take another one from right now. I think I only took one. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I accidentally take a third. That's when I get all spastic and stuff like that. These will invigorate you. They help your energy. They help your vitality and your overall health. It's really good for intestinal health, by the way. I've noticed I've always had a cast iron stomach, but since I started taking the mushroom pills, I'm able to digest things like twice as easily. And so you don't have that problem where sometimes you get stopped up or something like that. This happens from time to time, even to the best of us. Then we have BiltongUSA.com, the land of Anton's delicious bovite. And of course the Marmite and Vegemite, but the bovite is definitely the best of the three. Just saying, don't tell Anton I told you. You can use this for anything. They're all good on toast, and I've eaten quite a bit of all three of them. He's also got various meats available. Process it himself. Wagyu, Angus, Cabanassi, venison, bison. He's probably going to get like ostrich biltong in there at some point. We've also got Stick, Sex, and Hammer mugs, tumblers, and shirts available. So yeah, there's all sorts of stuff available. Go and visit the shop and see what you can find. And finally, jamandbean.com. That is jamnbean.com. The home of the Clanker Blend coffee, which multiple people have said is the best coffee that they've ever tasted. I'm not surprised. Of the three coffees that I prototypically tasted, this was the best one, and so we decided to make this the Clank Blend. I think that the right decision was made here. There's also the Costa Rica Blend. That one's really great too. That one's, it's a little bit lighter than the Clanker Blend. And then you've got various teas, both caffeinated and uncaffeinated. Take your pick, because it really doesn't matter. You're probably going to enjoy them all. They should have like Swiss Colony style sampler packs and stuff like that and sell them for the holidays. In fact, I'll mention that. Like if you box them up and you're like, hey, here's your tea sampler. There's a coffee sampler. This one's got crackers and cheese in it or something like that. Sounds really great, actually. I actually wanted to order something from the Swiss Colony. I've never done so before, but I do know that the charcuteries that you can make from those packets of like meat and cheese, they are very, very tasty. I've only had Hickory Farms before. But I'm going to look into that. I'm going to see what I can do. Bitter Angels, Costa Rican coffee rules. Yeah, the Costa Rica blend is very good. I will put the Clanker blend, though, up against literally any coffee in the fucking world. Yeah, what we need to do is get some of those monkeys, and they eat, like, the coffee beans, and they poop them out, and the coffee beans get ground up and roasted, and it's like $1,000 for, a single container of it, because it's so scarce. Yeah, we need to buy Jam and Bean some monkeys, actually. I think, let's crowdfund that. Please buy monkeys. Make them eat coffee beans. Then you take their shit and wash it out and, you roast the beans. Apparently it makes it more tasty or something? I have absolutely no idea. I can't imagine. Imagine that somebody 1,000 years ago is wandering through some jungle and the monkeys have been eating the coffee beans and he says, oh, there's beans in the shit. I wonder what those taste like. And he decides to brew coffee. This is probably what happened. Be more metal. You're out of your fucking mind. Yes, I have been for a very long time. I would notice that that's the same for literally everybody in the world. There's no such thing as sane. It does not exist. Yeah, it was weird when I first found out that there was actually a coffee made from monkey poop. King of Biltong, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Anton. That means it's that happy time of day when I can have another bit of Bovrite. Ha ha. Oh yeah. I'll never stop. As long as the Bovrite keeps coming, I will keep eating it. Yeah, Vulcus, I like to use certain things to texture my shit as it comes out. Feels good. Yeah, just eat like 5 cans of creamed corn or something like that and then see what happens. Randy Bell, people need real in their life. I agree, absolutely. Most people will not get the reference, though, so that'll have to be taught separately. There's going to be a lot of dark occultism on the channel in short order. Nigeria's Christian killings test Trump's promise of action. Trump has said he intends to attempt to intervene within Nigeria. They've got a problem, a Boko Haram problem. Boko Haram, which is one of the most drastic terroristic groups in the entire world, like they're on par with ISIS. Al Qaeda wouldn't work with ISIS. Boko Haram had no problem with it. There was a reason for this. They've been destroying pagan monuments. They've been burning churches. They've been abducting Christian, mainly females, and selling them into sex slavery, and just going completely apeshit, basically. They run part of Nigeria. If you're along the coast, if you're in, the larger cities there, it's generally safe. But if you're in the outlands, Boko Haram is pretty much the government there. And it's become a huge problem. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that are being killed and trafficked. That's probably a conservative estimate. And it has become a problem. The Trump administration has said, well, we're going to try to do something about it. It was very, very funny, therefore, when certain people in Nigeria said, no, we will fight back. Ha ha ha. We've got aircraft and stuff like that. What the hell are you going to do against the U.S. military? Can I please ask a question of the people of Nigeria? We are trying to defend a minority within your country which is being dispossessed. It's a minority within the areas that Boko Haram is operating in. Christianity is the majority in Nigeria, but only really in the urban areas. Outside of that, it's mainly Islamofascism. If we do choose to aid people to the best of our ability, and the Nigerian military, do you really expect that you can get enough aircraft into the sky to take out a U.S. aircraft carrier? I have a feeling your entire air force would be completely destroyed. It's probably best not to fuck with us. Just saying. I do not believe in world policing, nation building, and all of these other like Bushite, Bush Obama sort of things. But if there is a dispossessed group of people that is clearly suffering, like the Yazidi in Syria, and Christians and Jews in Syria, by the way, Christians in Nigeria, helping them is a humanitarian effort. We're trying to prevent people from dying by making the people that are trying to make them die, which is a little bit of an inception, but, we'll get over that for the moment, I suppose. Sertorius, my chimney repair expert is a Boer from South Africa. That would be a cool job, by the way, being, doing chimney repairs. Yeah, you gotta get your biltong from King of Biltong because, all the other biltong is going to be inferior quality. Just saying. At least in my personal opinion. BW, have you addressed redistricting yet? I will be in a moment. Hope SCOTUS pauses that order against Texas. How the fuck are we going to get done? Yeah, it's a big problem because here you've got the case of 2 redistrictings. You've got Texas on the one hand. We'll get to it right now, by the way. You've got Texas, and then you've got California. Apparently, federal courts think it's perfectly fine for California to gerrymander their map in order to bring about a favorable result. But federal courts also believe that Texas is not allowed to do the same thing. This is absolutely ludicrous. The Supreme Court must immediately get involved with this. Either both states are allowed to redistrict, or neither state is allowed to redistrict. Either the maps remain the same as they were before, and the Supreme Court would be probably technically violating the Constitution and the 10th Amendment by doing so, or both states are unilaterally allowed to do so. The idea that some abstract sense of racial profiling is involved with the redistricting, and so therefore the redistricted map is ineligible to actually be used, makes absolutely no sense. You're saying that a federal court, now keep in mind this is a federal court, so the 10th Amendment applies. The state, which has generally supremacy over its elections, is not allowed to redraw districts because a court has arbitrarily decided that it's unfair? That's a little bit discomforting. I mean, the alternative is, of course, that states can do whatever the hell they want. That leads to abuse, too. You should have some sort of balance between the two. The Supreme Court should narrowly rule that this particular map is allowed and countermand the federal, the federal, court, and allow the motion to redistrict in California as well, and simply not contest it unless there's somebody who has an actual gripe that they can actually contest from. The Supreme Court is very reluctant to take up cases like this, especially when this is a legal quagmire. Effectively, you've got two different federal courts making entirely different decisions, and it's based on politics. It's not the state of Texas that's being political by redistricting. It's the federal courts. The federal court there has decided you're not allowed to do that, but another federal court has said, yeah, California's allowed to do that. That's perfectly fine. You can pick up 6, 7 seats or something like that. This is bullshit, in my opinion. Unfortunately, we now have an activistic judiciary on a level that we haven't seen before. The last time that the judiciary was this activistic was probably during the fucking Reconstruction period. That's before any of us were born. Even the oldest person in the world doesn't even remember that goddamn period. King of Biltong. We also specialize in imported foods. Check out Biltong USA. Yeah, for a great selection of imported candies, cookies, groceries, and of course, Biltong. www.biltongusa.com, code STICKS for 10% off. There should be a special link where people can gift me Bovrite. I'll end up with a little pyramid in the background or something. That would be funny as hell. Boinkmess, D'Antford. Yeah, good band. Pitbull Terrier. Good song. JJ the Trap Extraordinaire. Rancid meat. Alrighty then. Yeah, the biltong is definitely not rancid. No, it's fresh and delicious, actually. It depends on what you want to use it for, though. If you want, like, meat for camping or, you're just wandering around the woods, you probably want the Angus sticks of Cabanassi. But if you're going to put it in, like, a soup or something, some of the shredded meat is probably a better idea. Oh, we've got the AI bubble story. I've seen this astroturfed over and over again. I get nervous when I see legacy media articles that are saying basically the same thing over and over again, and it seems politically motivated. And that's what I'm seeing with the Nvidia and the AI systems that are being used right now. Saying, well, there's an AI bubble. Everyone's nervous. It's basically begging the question. It's funny because I don't know any singular individual that I know of, actually, that's nervous about it at all. I know that I'm not. AI has proven itself useful. It has its faults. It has problems, it needs refining, and it needs advancement. But in a very short period of time, let's just be completely honest. AI has gone from, hey, I can generate a weird cartoon of a pill bottle, to, hey, I can create entire music videos. It did not take long for that to happen. The progression rate is roughly tacking along with the progression of what had been the internet, where the original internet is largely text, lo-fi images, and stuff like that. Now, you can do pretty much anything with the internet. AI is following the same trajectory. I would not bet against AI. I would not be a Paul Krugman like, the internet will be no more meaningful than the fax machine. He claims retrospectively that he was joking at the time, and being sarcastic, but no, that was actually the bet that he made. He stated it quite unequivocally, and he was completely wrong. Much like with the internet, or with crypto, by the way, AI is not going anywhere, dude. There's absolutely no reason why AI wouldn't continue to be used. So there's your core basis for the existence of the market. There's no reason why it won't improve, because quite clearly that kind of improvement is something that has a cost impetus. So if it gets better and cheaper, and you can continue supplying the chips to actually run it, which I don't believe there will be a problem, since Nvidia's valuation is in the several $1 trillion range. It's, I believe, one of the most expensive companies in the world. If all of these things are true, there's no reason why AI wouldn't do well. I have a feeling that AI is going to be used for a hell of a lot more. F-Winter's loading. Mamdani is meeting with Trump tomorrow. If he plans to drop the rhetoric and work with Trump, that's a good thing. Glad Trump is open to the meeting. He doesn't really have a choice. He has to at least talk to the dude once. Arcurace video is glitching. Yeah, a couple of people have said that over on Rumble. Nobody seems to have said anything on YouTube, though, as far as I can see. Huh. I don't know. Tahuti Prime, the cult of the Black Cube is interested in you, Mr. Six. I think you mean Sticks. Do you mean Islam or some auxiliary group? Yeah, apparently I'm cutting in and out, yet again. How wonderful. Thanks, YouTube. We'll have to diagnose the problem yet again. I do not believe that it's on my end, though. Give me a second here. I just gotta make sure that I'm connected to the right network. No, I'm connected to the Fidium, so it shouldn't be having a problem since I'm literally right next to the router. Leon, there appears to be big logs of shit in your modem. Interesting. I'll look it up, Tahuti Prime. Oh yes, the hexagonal cloud conundrum. It's very, very funny because they've never actually fully explained how that's working. They say it's a jet stream issue, but it may or may not be. There are weirder things going on in this universe than most people believe in. Nick plays. How do I inspire myself to do creative works? I feel like sometimes I just completely struggle with it. Just make sure that you find something that you're truly interested in and turn your hobbies, the things that you're interested in, into something that is productive. And if you get disinterested, like when I'm writing, if I'm not in the mood to write, if I'm just not feeling it, I will not write. Because the quality of the product in the end is going to be much more refined if I only do it when I'm really, really interested in it. That's why I like to have multiple things that I'm doing at any given time. So I'll be writing a work, editing a work, making videos, docketing news, preparing for live streams, preparing to cook, all of these other things that I have in mind, gardening, that I'm interested in. And if I don't feel like doing one of them, I can always do one of the others. And so I bounce around from, thing to thing all day, basically. Sometimes I work for 12, 14 hours a day, actually, and get very little sleep. I also starve myself in order to increase my productivity. That's another thing to do. I'm going to accomplish this. Until I accomplish it, I'm not allowed to have that sandwich. It works. It actually works. F. Winters loading. Did you see Tucker's new documentary on the Butler shooter? No, I didn't see that, actually. Yes, yeah, it's not medical advice. I've found that, at least for myself, it's a good idea to deprive yourself of food and other things in order to make yourself work harder. Because you're like, oh, my tummy's growling. Well, I mean, I have to finish this section before I'm allowed to have those eggs over there. It works. Ninja0808. Sending to let you know you're fucking awesome for covering the Texas redistricting story. Tried to get Timmy Pool's side of it with the super chat last night and got ignored, so he can chuckle about nothing during super chats. Thank you for your donation. Yeah, it is retarded when you think about it. So the federal court is allowed to intercede on the 10th Amendment on election law, but only in Texas. In California, they're not allowed to do that. That makes a lot of sense. JJ the Trap Extraordinaire, anorexic like Nick Rekieta. Oh no, I stuff myself in the evenings. It's just that when I'm doing like this sort of thing, I'll have had a small amount of food before my live stream, and I never eat before my main videos. Absolutely not. I never eat before those, because I want to push them through. Then I know that I have a couple of hours where I can do other things. I will have some food at that point. After my live stream, though, I pig out, man. I had General Tso's chicken with really, really good rice, actually, last night, and some chop suey, and some Szechuan beef, and would have, and then the egg rolls. So, I don't know, I probably ate more calories in a single sitting than most people eat in a single day. I just have a high metabolism. Taco Woman Sandy Ravage. Read on Breitbart that neocons plan on backing DeSantis for 2028 if MAGA fails. They're encouraging W to get involved. Oh my god. Charms. Yeah, by the looks of things, Styx isn't doing much writing. I'm currently working on full-length works. Those take a little bit longer. I do have 4 different edited works that are presumptively going to become available, but I lost contact with my illustrator, unfortunately. If anyone does sketch art or something like that, I'd be perfectly willing if you would DM me on Twitter. I've got, I think, 4, actually maybe 5 works that are ready already. I've constructed them all. They're just awaiting illustration. Everything else is perfectly fine. Then I'm writing Morbid stories. And then I had to do Nutty Norman, and I had to remake the first Morbid stories, and I've got several other ideas for works. I've been writing up a storm. I've probably written several thousand pages, actually, this year, so, yeah. Snakes bleed red. Styx does not like writing anymore. Don't be fooled. Morbid Stories 2 is almost ready to be available. I'm approaching 300 pages in that particular work. but it's going to take a little bit more to write a work from scratch and make it like 350 pages long, as opposed to editing a work where mainly it's reformatting and spell checking. It takes a lot longer. I mean, Jesus, I've written more books than a lot of people have actually read in their lives, so I'm not going to look down on myself for my particular literary efforts. By the way, some of them are really great. In fact, maybe I can read one of them to you. First we got to get to the last news story, though. The education department is being dismantled. Here's what that means. Unfortunately, this is not a complete dismantling of the educational department. What I think we should do is just get rid of it altogether, because it doesn't work. It hasn't worked since the 1970s. It's a pile of shit. We're spending a lot of money. And people are saying, well, if you get rid of the Department of Education, kids will be illiterate. They're already illiterate. That's the whole point. They have not improved education in any meaningful manner. Kids can't count. Kids can't spell. Kids can't fucking read. I like to make money writing books. Who am I going to sell them to? Apparently, nobody in the future generations is going to be capable of reading them, so it's a little bit of a personal problem for me, too. Semi-joking, by the way. The Department of Education never helped education in any meaningful way. Instead, we get Common Core, which I call Common Crap, No Child Left Behind, which I call No Child Left, and stuff like that getting incepted by this department that is lowering testing standards in a vain attempt to try to artificially prop up the number of people who are supposedly sufficient with regards to things like math and reading and stuff. They have to keep lowering the standards because the teachers' unions have clogged up the schools with shitty teachers that should all be fired, every single last one of them. The schools are, the administration gets too much money. They should be diverting those funds as well, among other things. This is only a partial solution. It's a good idea, but it's only a partial solution. They're going to be transferring several $1 billion in assets generally to the Department of the Interior and to a few other bureaucratic agencies that actually function. Because the Department of Education certainly isn't one of them. So it'll be very, very fun. But you've got to realize, when I went to UVM, keep in mind, all of these people graduated high school. They're going for college degrees. These are not retards. These are reasonably intelligent individuals. At the very least, they're somewhere in the upper middle or something like that, because UVM is not technically easy to get into. You get a little bit of an advantage if you're a Vermonter. That's probably the only reason that I got to go there. Good SAT score, good AP courses, but the cost. I don't even want to talk about the cost of UVM. When I was in one anthropology class, one of the big things that we did, it was about anthropological literature. So we had to peer review one another's work. So we had to grammatically correct it and stuff like that. I got so goddamn fucking pissed at this course that you have no idea. Again, keep in mind, I have edited more books than the average person has read in their lifetime. I know fully about grammar, spelling, format, everything else. We're turning in our literature. I'm reading, some of the other students' literature. It's just a hot mess. I couldn't even fully correct it. I'm like, okay, I can correct the spelling errors and probably the format here, but it's such a mess that I can't really do anything else with it other than completely rewrite it myself. And so, people were pissed at that on several occasions. I give my literature in. Now, I know how to spell there, and there. I'm well aware of past participles and all of these other things, but I'm getting corrected to death even though my work was perfect, actually. I had already pre-edited it twice. So it's more like somebody who is fundamentally illiterate is trying to edit your work. And so I just ignored it and turned it in. I think I got a B plus on that anyway, so I think that I was evinced in that particular instance. It was weird. It was a weird course, let me tell you. I also don't know exactly why it's supposed to exist. Anthropological literature. We're going to read books. Wait, you've been reading them already? Well, you're going to read more of them. Then you're going to have to judge your peers. Let's see. Yeah, it would be funny if... It would be odd if the neocons backed DeSantis. Because DeSantis is more of like a Ted Cruzite missing link conservative, more than anything else. That is, I don't think that he's fully principled MAGA. I will not give him credit for that. But he has done a few things that are really funny. The Martha's Vineyard incident alone gives me reason to believe, okay, DeSantis at the very least should be reelected governor. Although I don't know if he can run again. Don't they have term limits down in Florida for the gubernatorial slot? I know they do in like Virginia and a few other states. I don't know if they have that down in Florida. But look that up. Skippy, make a modern edit of anarchist cookbook. Yeah, one where you won't actually blow your hands off. That'd be funny. Going for gold 85. Two big government lies. The Department of Education will help kids, and expanded welfare aid will help black people. Both have been disastrous. Exactly. The Origin Factory. Okay, Florida does have term limits for governor. He could run for Congress or something like that. Maybe he could run for lieutenant governor? I don't exactly know. That's what they do in Virginia. You can only serve for governor or lieutenant governor for a single term, so oftentimes they oscillate back and forth, so it's non-consecutive. I don't know. I don't know how effective that system is, but... Linux Debian 104. Check out Victor Davis Hanson if you're into military history or history in general. Definitely am. King of Beltong, apologies, very busy morning today. Let that guy that complained message us. We send replacements for anything that went wrong during shipping. Also, we'll send you some of our imported goods next week. Yummy. Ah, Justelis is here. We love the Hexenhammers in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Oh yeah, I was going to read everyone a morbid story. Let me grab that file up, see what we can do. You got to realize that this is now, how many pages in am I? 294 pages. Now keep in mind, this is a larger trim than I normally use too, so this is going to be a full-length novel. I mean, technically it already is, but we'll see. Let's find something that's really funny. The hot sauce hottie. Yeah, you're gonna see some weird shit if you buy a copy of this work. Trust me, you're gonna see things beyond your imagination. Basically, the whole point of morbid stories is that you start off with a relatively innocuous concept, and then the person effectively just goes crazy. And so there's violent volumes, filthy folios, animalistic entries, and stuff like that. And, like, one of these is called Tsunami of Aborted Fetal Remains. That's one of the names of the stories. And so I have fun writing these. I find them amusing. I've been doing this since I was in high school. I am unrepentant about it. I've always liked splatterpunk. What got me into it first was a vision that I had during a dream where I was eating like a dehydrated fetus. And all of a sudden, I just suddenly got inspired to write this sort of stuff. And also I read The Bridge and The Scream by Craig Skip and John Spector. And I didn't realize until later there's a whole genre of work that's kind of like this, which is called splatterpunk. So this is like horror on steroids. It's meant to be completely mindless. Huge amounts of violence, lots of gore, lots of sexual stuff, and depravity and insanity in general. and that's basically the comedic foil. It's so over the top that effectively it becomes almost a comedy work. And it's very, very interesting, actually. I don't know of any other particular authors that I've read that made similar literature. But I would strongly recommend, if you do like the literature that I'm making, read The Bridge and The Scream by Craig Skip and John Spector, if you can find a copy. They're fantastic works, and I credit them. I've actually dedicated one of my works to them because it's so great. Yeah. I don't even know if I can read some of this literature on a YouTube live stream without getting banned. So I have to be a little bit careful here. Because some of it's a little bit more messed up than the rest. I mean, it's all messed up, but, you know. Yeah, we've got animalistic articles, demonic documents, drugged dossiers, fanatic files, filthy folios, macabre manuscripts, violent volumes, morbid haikus. I did that in the last volume. And then I was going to write a short story about pirates versus communists, actually, in which a group of communists gets attacked by a pirate ship, and they decide to unload, and they slaughter the communists to the last man. Then they cannibalize them. That's basically the foil. I'm having fun. I read my own work. When I'm writing this sort of work, I'll actually read it. When I make edited works, typically, I don't even like to have my own works on the shelf. I just consider it pretentious. But I will read these, like, when I'm in the right mood. In one of my more effervescent moods. By the way, where the hell did my tab go? There it is, I guess. So yeah, I enjoy writing extreme literature. Joey Zro, why do British pronounce H like chesh? I don't know. Apocalypse, wow, plugging Mark Felton for World War II history. World War II history is fun. Grandpa Bob used to ramble about it for hours. He knew pretty much everything about it. Same with the Civil War. He was like a walking encyclopedia. He missed his calling. He decided to get into master carpentry. Albeit a good position to be in, but he really should have been a professor. Charm. Sticks are using Barnes and Ingram Spark or just Amazon? Barnes and Noble will print out my volumes. But I process it through Amazon, yes. Yeah, let's read one of these stories. I just have to find one. I have to find one where it's morbid enough to impress people, but it's not morbid enough to get me banned. Because there's some elaborate language in here. Okay, well, we'll read this one. This one is called Cobweb Cock. Jackson was an interesting man. On the outside, he was perfectly well presented, very intelligent, had a good well-paying job, had a few good friends he went bowling with, and a few others he generally went on hikes with. Why would he wander off when hiking and camping was something they found odd. But he was friendly and seemed a totally normal man, so they overlooked it. Unknown to them, Jackson was collecting spiders. On those long days and nights, Jackson was interested in spending time with his friends and sometimes family. But he really enjoyed his collection. He tenderly fed them and thought of them as his girlfriends. One time he lost one, which had apparently died of old age, and gave it a little Viking funeral in a fish tank. He was not exactly sane, just intelligent enough to hide his insanity from others generally. The only man apparently adept enough at reading people, a homeless Persian Gulf-era medical worker with severe mental issues from being driven into a trench where he sat for 3 days and nights without rest, only to emerge and see an ocean of bloated bodies, always muttered when Jackson passed by, predicting it wouldn't end well for him. He had a funnel web spider, which was, he believed, a reincarnated beautiful woman who wanted him to love her for who she was in any form, and that if he showed her love when she was a spider, he would be with her forever when he finally died. He planned to end his life if the spider died, and could hear it talking to him in his head, telling them in a prior life she had been Jesus Christ, and that she had enjoyed drinking people's urine and rolling around. Then it told him that it was once a farm girl who fell in love with a soldier but got stood up, then proceeded to poison her entire village by dumping toxic mushroom squeezings in the village well. He was fascinated and told her disturbing stories he had seen in books. She was pleased with this and promised to take his cock inside as soon as she was more his size. But Jackson struggled daily with this. He loved his spider girlfriend, but he really needed to fuck. His only shred of basic morality in his entire shattered, broken mind was that he wouldn't cheat on his spider girlfriend. He delusionally styled himself as a sort of Abraham Lincoln, too, and had developed an elaborate fantasy world in which the spiders were in bondage and slavery, and he was the one tasked with making them free. He put on the chocolate face and old tattered suit he got from the homeless shelter, which made him look like he would either deal crack to you or set you up with something to stab you with a pimpaconda. A brief theater performance ensued as Jackson entertained his girlfriend by doing Mammy and other minstrel hits while dancing. In his mind, all the spiders were clapping. "I's gonna free you, 'cause then I'd be a bigger man." He opened their enclosure tops except for his girlfriend. He had other plans for her. Lowering wooden poles into the enclosures, the spiders indeed began to escape the tanks. He wept tears of happiness as he watched the captives be free. A few of them attacked one another because they had not yet had lunch. With great and delusional glee, he spoke to himself a bizarre, disjointed soliloquy which did not make sense. He laughed like a maniac because he was recording all that he was doing from 3 angles, so that police would have to review hours of him saying crazy things and talking to his girlfriend. The thought of them not understanding what the hell they were seeing made him laugh uncontrollably. He even pissed his pants one time thinking about it, then stripped his clothes off and danced around like a drunken Irishman, in full view of the cameras, laughing and pissing and hitting himself in the head while yelling about how the neighbor's cat was actually intelligent enough to build an airplane, and everyone in the human race was in danger of warrior cats taking over the fishing industry. As the spiders vacated their cages and wandered to freedom and away from being forced to grow cotton and okra, Jackson got bitten on the foot by one as it walked past, and he moved and stepped on a couple of its legs. Soon only stringers of cobwebs were left as the spiders set off to colonize the entire house. This pleased Jackson, since he could then ask his girlfriend if she was interested in having a 3-way. He didn't care whether it was a man or woman spider because he wasn't choosy. In his ever spiraling madness, Jackson now took the webbings out of the enclosures, which had spiders which spun webs. He had a few orb weavers and some others. His girlfriend was a funnel web of some unknown species, and he would carefully place flies onto it as a tribute. Today was the final day, Jackson knew, as he scooped webbing very carefully from objects placed in the tanks for specifically this purpose. Convenient locations for both orb weavers and tunnel spiders were made, and then little wooden scaffolds, which could be made for webs, were placed inside. This had been one of his greatest achievements, and worked perfectly. He withdrew the little balsam wood scaffolds and rubbed the webs on his cock, stuffing a pod full of spider babies in his asshole as he moaned in a truly depraved, animalistic manner, belying his animal-level lust, like a brain-damaged lion that can only think about stuffing his cock inside a dead bird and gets mad when it won't fit into its leaking rubbery guts and organs. This was an amazing day already. The foreplay had been delightful, and soon Jackson was standing there naked, posing for spider selfies on the floor, sending them to his co-workers and friends. Rapid fire. Sorry, I find this sort of thing funny. Only his extremely warped friend from the local comedy club laughed, with everyone else blocking him or messaging him to ask if he was okay. Then he began to live stream, telling his followers that he was in love, standing there with his fully erect, cobweb-covered cock, smiling demonically. He smashed the final casing and grabbed his girlfriend, putting her to his cock and letting it bite him right on the edge of his pee hole. Technically, his girlfriend was sticking her whole mouth inside of his dick. This made Jackson so happy as he spun up a song, and the spider envenomed his penis. It was a perfect symbol of their love, Claire de Lune. As several hundred people watched in horror, with Jackson laughing maniacally and babbling about his love, he fell backwards as his dick turned purple and the spider crawled up his body. He tried to hug it but squished it against his nipple, getting one last masochistic bestial rush, then died in a puddle of urine. Several audience members had called the ambulances for him, but they wouldn't arrive for hours because one firefighter had to dilate his neo-vagina and another was sick with radiation poisoning after joining a protest against Russia while in Moscow. None of the rest had licenses due to DUI, since it was an extremely drunk bumpkin town where nobody had a future. In hell, Jackson and his anthropomorphic spider chick were reunited and very quickly got married. All was not well, though, for it turned out she was a raging nympho and would wake him up 5 times a night for sex. He begged Satan for a solution, so he gifted him a magic cock that could go 12 times in a row really easily. That night, the human spider pussy took a trip to Wonderland as she spun a web and hung upside down from the ceiling. The springy webbing was pulled up and down as she hung there upside down, pulled into his magical down-shaped cock. So yeah, that's about what you get with morbid stories, just saying. Ripsidian. It is not erotica. There are sexual overtones in my work, but it's not meant to be erotic. It's meant to be hysterical, actually. Pre-Dawn Corpse. RTU. Review Tech USA ate his daughter's eyes? What? I'm assuming this is some sort of troll. Yeah, I'm not seeing any evidence that he ate his own daughter's eyes. I have heard of him before. I don't think I've really ever seen much of his content, though. Ripsidian. Why am I hard, then? Well, again, there are sexual overtones, extreme violence, and so forth in morbid stories. Personally, I love writing them. I mean, it's just creativity. I've been writing morbid and crazy literature now since I was in, well, technically elementary school, but the more polished stuff since high school. And so I just enjoy it. It's relaxing to me. And when I release the books, then it makes money. Snake Speed Red. He's a horn dog. He's obsessed with pussy. Yes, I do love sex. The sexuality that's in morbid stories, though, is not meant to be erotica. It's more meant to be as disgusting as possible. And probably read another one off here, maybe. The problem is I just have to make sure that they're not going to get me banned when I read them. Because some of them have, you know, really weird shit in them. We've got High Energy Henry. That one was more boring. That was more filler. Superior to the Turducken. Oh, this is a good one. Superior to the Turducken. Walter had a grand idea. He was an excellent chef, preparing all manner of foods for his family, friends, and whatever other guests arrive. He had normal income, but splurged on a considerable kitchen, pretty much ignoring every other feature in his house. He'd rather take a snooze on a futon in the corner than give up any of his kitchen cutlery, which he maintained in an anally retentive fashion. He had heard of the idea of a turducken, a turkey stuffed with a duck, which was stuffed in turn with a small chicken. The idea of roasting corpses inside of one another made him giddy just envisioning it. He had made one before, but he had imagined a new way to make it 10 times more formidable. He had to purchase a great deal of material at the store. The turkey was obvious. He had a great big oven, so he could get any size, opting for the largest. He skipped the duck because one of them bit him on the dick when he was a small child, so he wasn't interested. Instead, he got a very large chicken, some eggs, and some sparrows, which he had to purchase behind the local Asian shop. He assumed they just picked him off with pellet guns and then debrided their feathers, selling them under the counter, so to speak. It didn't matter. He figured if he cooked it well enough, it didn't matter if the animal had been wallowing in trash and filth its entire life. He invited a select assortment of guests. His lawyer, his insane brother, who was arguably more crazy than he was, a few associates of his brother, who were known tweakers, and of course a few high school friends who were unfortunate enough not to have the cash to leave the stupid town. Walter was actually doing well compared to most, because a lot of people had hedged their bets on getting into the local automotive industry, but it collapsed. Unemployment was an issue. Those that could left. The town had become quite seedy, and Walter knew where to get the good stuff. He was black, and so people assumed he wanted to buy drugs regularly. He never really touched this stuff, but thought his guests might want some, so he managed to score some crack and some hash, a wonderful addition to his upcoming culinary abomination. Starting, he removed the contents of the birds, and with each layer of taste, he basted and oiled and spiced it up with a florée of various herbs, savoring the aroma. He did not bother to wear gloves, since he thought the slimy feeling of dead bird flesh was orgasmic. He managed to fuck the chicken because its neck hole was about the right size for his cock, adding a little extra protein to the meal, then sealing his sperm inside with several handfuls of dead sparrows and some eggs, which he arranged on the outside, there being some empty space behind it because the turkey was so large. Then he sewed up the entire thing. He accidentally stitched his forefinger to the chicken at one point and had to painfully withdraw the needle, laughing as dead chicken fluids painted his wound, making it itch badly. He disliked the itch around the time he finished sewing and popping the monstrosity into the oven, and dunked his fingers into a pot of boiling water until it was clearly dead flesh, then whacked off it with a meat cleaver. Cauterizing on a heating coil, he bandaged it, but only casually. At least it stopped the bleeding. The guests arrived and remarked on the grand smell of this monumental pile of flesh. His lawyer begged to see it cooking, but he said it was a surprise. Everyone needed to wait. In the side room, Walter managed to rub himself to orgasm one more time, surrounded by an empty office because he didn't care about anything but his cooking. He left the cum on his hand while he prepared the meal. There was plenty of other food, potatoes, carrots, a soup, salad, all the fixings of a feast. These were served with appetizers, and then came the main menu. Struggling to even lift the thing, Walter managed to get the giant turkey and its various fillings onto the table. It was perfectly done, juicy inside, crisp outside, and smelled amazing to the people there. Until Walter unveiled the surprise. Using kitchen shears, he slowly cut off the stitching, holding the thing together. A burst of steam from inside propelled the chicken out of the turkey's asshole, and then the chicken burst open. Dead sparrows cooked just right, slopping out of its asshole too. Eggs, now hard-boiled, rolling across the table and platter, a few hitting the floor. One of them had a dead chicken side because he bought the hippie eggs at the local co-op. His guests stared in shock and several people gagged. His brother was amused, but everyone else began running for the bathroom, gurgling vomit as Walter and his brother laughed at their discomfort. He started screaming at his guests about how this was an immaculate conception and that he was going to let the bird flesh rot and then use the slimy blackened skin as a condom and fuck a living chicken in the vent soon, using a shit-piss mixture as lube. The lawyer decided to leave. Not disgusted so much as confused about why he had ever represented this madman in a DUI case. Walter tossed a bag of shit at him as he left. He carried one of them at all times, in case of such an eventuality. Swearing and waving his fist, the lawyer peeled out too hard and ended up T-boned by an incoming pickup, killing him instantly. Walter found this too funny and could not stop laughing, gasping for air and gagging on his own spit as he doubled over to the floor, waving to his brother, trying to get some medical attention because he couldn't breathe and his heart was palpitating. His brother was not aware of what Walter was seeking to convey, and was busy watching the guests fight each other as they puked up whatever they had for lunch. He invented a fun game in his mind where he tried to guess what lunch had been. He knew at least one person who'd eaten a lot of corn, and someone was a day drinker. They could tell from the sour foaming stench wafting off of their puke. As Walter watched, his dysgenic brother began eating the sparrows and proclaimed them to be good. The guests began to flee the home, right past the asphyxiating Walter, who was now tearing up from laughing so hard and tried to calm himself down by cutting himself until he bled all over the floor, desperately trying to get himself to stop laughing. This didn't work, and he choked to death on his own laughter as his brother slowly consumed the tasty meat treat. In hell, Walter predictably became a chef again. His restaurant started off modestly, serving average fare. By the way, there is one typo that I will redact here. Perfect. I like doing this. Started off modestly, serving average fare, but he kept it all and innovated, finding more and more ways to present food in as horrific a way as possible while keeping it tasty. The 6,000th annual Imp Meat Award went to Walter, who stuffed two imps' heads into one another's assholes in a sort of circle, like a big onion ring, added batter and breadcrumbs in 4 layers, and then deep-fried them, their guts removed and filled with fish sticks. Imp fish sticks turned out to be very popular, elevating his status. The gorilla pie was also an incredible seller, usually along with a number of highly alcoholic house drinks, such as the Burning Ass Tumor, which was a mix of vodka and sambuca served with mango slices and containing an actual anal tumor, which alcohol had soaked into. The tumor was highly alcoholic and when chewed apart was worth a couple shots at the best. So yeah, that's what you're getting with morbid stories. I'm sure that some of you enjoy this, and some of you deeply do not enjoy it. Joel Wagner, certified bro literature. Yeah, I mean, that's just a couple of samples. I think there's, at this point, there would be roughly, well, there'd be roughly 100 entries, actually, in it. I keep them to about 3 pages apiece. That gives you long enough to establish a basic plot and segue into it, but also enough time to make it, like, really morbid. Oh, God. Snakes bleed red. I'm sure we could find a hooker with a fat pussy that is down to vomit some candy corn on Stick's waiting chest. Don't you make me make a candy corn entry in this fucking book. Copium poppies. Mention of Anton. You are hereby ordered by Clankdom to eat a big glob of bovrite. I will obey. You don't need to command me to eat bovrite. I'll do that anytime. Really, though, combine that with the Chinese 5 spices. For some reason, it goes so well with bovrite. You only need a few pinches of it, by the way. I don't even know, dude. Oscar Gonzalez. No, I have never used AI in my writing. I've considered using AI for writing, but I believe in my own personal talent. Copium poppies. That wasn't a big glob. Yeah, it was. Alright, well, I'll get one that's bigger. Encouraging me again. God, facilitating my bovrite habit. Alright, there we go. Too salty, says Anton. Even though for some technical reason it's low salt. I don't exactly know how this happens. But JJ the Trap, why do you keep saying rancid meat over and over again? Copium poppies. Fish dicks. You could probably batter and fry the average fish cock. I mean, if you're into that. Hey, that's a good idea for a morbid story. Some crazy fisherman, he is obsessed with fucking fish and stuff like that, and then he starts battering their dicks and pussies and stuff like that and eats them. Copium. Now you have to do it again since Anton said too salty. Yeah, no, I'm gonna save a little bit of that because this is the one with the 5 spices in it, and I've really only got like 1 or 2 dabs left, so I want to save it for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not really... Lorraine Psycho. I don't think Styx has seen that South Park episode. I know about gay fish. I have seen that, yes. Joel Wagner. Copium Poppies usually comments over on Rumble. So you're not going to see him. If you're on like the YouTube stream or the Twitter stream, you're probably not going to see him. Anyways, I have to go offline. I've got to arrange some news, and I've also got to do a lot of writing because I'm really excited to do it. I am in one of those moods where I'm probably going to write 3 or 4 sections today. Only I've got one minor formatting issue because the manuscripts, technically speaking, are out of order. But it doesn't really matter. You just write them and then you reformat it and take like 10 minutes or something like that. So I've got to make sure to look through and see exactly what I'm doing because I really want this manuscript specifically to be perfect. I really, really want it to be proper format, no grammatical errors, or at least, you know, you're always going to have a couple, but nothing major. Everything, you know, sort of in line. And I want to go crazy and write things that are even more insane than the things that I've been writing alreedy. Basically, if Rob Zombie wrote a book or something like that, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Turbo script sticks. Yeah, I don't want to use AI for my books. I have to do these myself. I can't let a computer write my books for me. Then I haven't made them. So I don't own them, technically speaking. Some random company owns them. I will do my own books. I will never use AI for any purpose other than possibly reformatting or something like that. Anyways, I'm going to go offline. Joey Escrow. Thoughts on Charms not knowing how to say H? I'm not sure exactly what that means. Are you talking about a user or the show or... I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to go offline here. I will look into AI as far as getting ideas for morbid content, but I really like to dream that up myself because it's really more of a form of humor to me. And it's like I daydream constantly about death and despair and macabre things and, you know, violence, and find it very, very funny, actually. I've been doing this since I was in fucking middle school. It's only more recently that I was able to actually translate it into actual literature. I am extremely excited to bring Morbid Stories 2.0 to the world. This is going to be one of my most monumental works, I believe. Then we got to make the next Nutty Norman, redo Sickness and Hell, Morbid Stories 3 eventually. I've got a haiku work, I guess. There's a lot of stuff actually to cover. It's going to be thousands of pages of work. This is in addition to like over 400 edited copies that have already made, and I've still got some of them ready. Again, if anyone here is willing to do just very, very basic black and white sketch art, it doesn't even matter the style. I can take a look at it. Please do DM me on Twitter, because I do have 4 or 5 different works, and again, you get credit for being the illustrator, so you're going to be associated with the work if you want to. Only if you want to. I do need illustrations. You have to do 10 different illustrations for Amazon releases now, unless they're your own copyright. So if I'm writing something like this, I don't have to do anything. If it's going to be unedited work, though, and I do have some lined up, you have to add footnotes or illustrate. I can't remember what the third part was about transformative material. It didn't used to be that way. You didn't used to have to illustrate them. It was understood that it was out of copyright because it's from the fucking 1800s or something like that. But now they've begun comparing the works they're uploading to any pre-existing copy that happens to exist at all, which means that you have to make a transformative work. So, yeah, if anyone wants to do illustrations for yours truly, absolutely, I am perfectly willing to hire you for this purpose. These are labor of love work, so, I mean, you're not going to get, $10,000 or anything like that. But I am capable of paying if that's necessary. So yeah, I'm going to end the live stream here and go and work on my books because it's fun. That's about all.